Okay, thanks. And thanks to John Sewell and others involved with the Economic Inequality Project, and thanks to everybody else who stayed here and not headed outside to listen to some nice music with the Jazz Festival. So how many people in this room have ever themselves been on unemployment insurance, EI, or have had a family member on that program? Quite a few. It is, in fact, one of Canada's two large Canada-wide social insurance programs for workers in the paid labour market, and the Canada Pension Plan is the other one. Workers pay for social insurance. It is not funded by general taxes as are programs like family benefits. And like CPP, employment insurance is self-financing through workplace premiums that are taken out of every paycheck every week that we work, and matching premium contributions by the employer. It provides income maintenance for folks when we're separated from our employment. Now that's temporarily or permanently. It's usually when somebody has been either laid off from their job or lost their job as a result of closure, occasionally for things like EI work sharing in lieu or instead of layoffs. People are working on short weeks. It's also used as income maintenance during specified periods of maternity, parental, or compassionate care leave. It also provides a modest period of benefits for those on short-term sick leave and quarantine. We don't often think of that one, but that was important during the SARS period here in Toronto. And EI finally also funds employment benefits for training and a range of employment services that are now administered by the provinces. So we have come a long way from the dirty 30s. And unemployment does not necessarily mean destitution as it once did. And I think it's important to recall that in the Depression beginning in 1929, which was followed by bankruptcies and mass layoffs, the unemployed had to survive on food vouchers. I've seen copies of the ones they used to use in York, or on municipal welfare. And federal so-called relief bills in 1930s, starting in 1930, there was a series of them, provided very minimal amounts to local governments to begin things like work projects and in some cases the infamous labor camps. In response, a workers' movement began, and high on the list of demands was one for benefits that would replace earnings when workers faced job loss. You may be familiar with things like the Regina riots and the On to Ottawa trek. A lot of town councils didn't need a lot of convincing because they were reeling under a double burden. First of all, the escalating cost that they bore for welfare and food stamps, and on the other hand, and at the same time, the disappearing tax base to fund those costs as taxpayer after taxpayer lost their employment. Eventually, business groups actually began to support the idea as well of a national social insurance program. So this is something that workers fought for and won. It was originally introduced as the Unemployment and Social Insurance Act in 1935, but because of jurisdictional issues, and we still had to go to the British House of Lords in those days, it wasn't actually put in place until 1940. And I'm going back to these origins because I think some of these really basic pieces are forgotten these days, and a number of governments at every level, certainly the federal government and provincial governments, and for that matter city councils and mayors, need to be reminded of these early lessons, because the thing is, we all benefit from a well-functioning unemployment insurance system. And study after study has confirmed that unemployment insurance plays a key role in what is called economic stabilization. One of those reports referred to it as the single most, that's not the kind of word I'd use, the single most important economic stabilizer, saving further losses in jobs and GDP during downturns. And the fact of the matter is that in any given year, it will vary somewhere between $12 billion and $20 billion is being put back into the economy in the form of EI benefits to individuals and their families that would not otherwise be there. And I want to repeat, I'm talking about billions, not millions of dollars. It is an evolving program. It has had to expand to meet new social mandates. For example, UI, as it was called properly, originally excluded married women. It excluded public sector workers. It excluded people who were in part-time jobs. And at some point in our history of the program, those exclusions were no longer justified. The inequalities that they created were no longer acceptable. And let me remind, many people here don't need reminding, but in the late 20th century, the women's movement and others fought for an EI system that would respond to women's realities and see beyond the male employment norm. So after considerable struggle, we got maternity benefits, then adoptive benefits, and then parental benefits that could be shared by both parents. And now it's our turn again to reinvent EI to respond to the realities of the 21st century. EI can accommodate those realities if there is the political will, and it will be up to us to create that political will. Others have talked about the expanse, the mushrooming of temporary, precarious, casual employment that's out there. Roughly a third of the employment of the labor force are now in those kinds of jobs. And most of those people, at some point in time when they lose their job, are finding themselves outside the orbit of EI. Workers in part-time jobs, for example, have an EI eligibility rate because of the hours system and its design that's half that of full-time workers. And the problem is accessing the program, the requirement for way too many hours, even for those who do qualify, the shorter durations than we used to have, and the historically low benefit rates for those who do qualify, now at 55% of previous earnings. Labor and social and community groups have had a Fix EI campaign for a number of years. Now it has been in front of, it's taken the form of parliamentary bills. Parliamentary committees have studied and recommended some of those improvements. These are not improvements that we can't afford. It's often pointed out that the federal government had a $57 billion, and again, billion, not $1 million, debt to the EI account as of March 31st, 2009, having borrowed from starting in 1994, annual surpluses, using them for other purposes, even though they paid annual interest payments on that debt each year to the UI account. But in 2010, the Harper government, and I'm calling it that because, hey, that's what he likes to call it. In 2010, the Harper government did what other governments had not succeeded in doing, and that was a permanent confiscation, stealing, in other words, of $55 billion of that $57 billion, handing over only $2 billion as a starter feeder fund for the newly created EI Financing Board, which everybody's attention was on, and like a magician, he kept our eyes on this hand while the $55 billion went missing. So you can appreciate the anger that many have felt with the new federal government's budget bills. Not only did it not make any improvements in EI, but instead it went on the attack against the unemployed. Might as well have put a scarlet letter on the lot of them, blame and shame, in aid of a more flexible, cheap labor market. And some, as others have mentioned, some of that kind of magical thinking that we see around welfare and social benefits otherwise. That is kind of like if you starve people, that is the incentive to get them out and working in all these wonderful jobs that we have. So we've often called for a labor market partners forum where business and labor can sit down and discuss the real labor market issues that are out there, where there are real shortages in Alberta or Saskatchewan, with jobs going backing, but also with housing and infrastructure not in place, and making all of that unavailable and certainly unaffordable as a result of poor planning. Here in Ontario, we've got issues with literacy and basic skills that need attention, and overall, we need a good jobs creation strategy, as even the G20 leaders, this is before Toronto, as even the G20 leaders put out there in the middle of the recession in Pittsburgh, they said that we should be putting quality jobs at the heart of the recovery. That is their words. So we have a budget now that is giving new powers to the government to dictate EI regulations. They're doing that by taking things that are in the Act that normally require parliamentary debate. They're taking it out of the Act and they're putting it in the regulations, which they can change unhindered by public or parliamentary debate. They are creating, for the first time, 3 classes of unemployed: frequent, occasional, and long tenure. 75% of workers, and these are their own numbers from the EI Commission, 75% of workers fall in the frequent or occasional category. And contrary to, I think, a lot of mythology out there, most of these people are in Quebec and Ontario. They are not in Atlantic Canada. Quebec had this is frequent claimants in the last report from the government, over 188,000. Ontario had over 94,000, whereas Newfoundland had 54,000. So, and in any event, all these workers will face tougher requirements, being required to search outside their usual occupation, and at jobs that at some point in time where it will be either 70 to 90% of prior pay. They will be mailed email alerts twice daily. This assumes everybody's got computers and internet access. I don't know about you, but a lot of the unemployed people I know, one of the first things that goes is their internet access. But they will be getting email alerts twice daily, which will include the postings for temporary foreign workers, which, as others have pointed out, 5 to 15% below prevailing rates. They've restructured EI pilot projects. I'm not going to go into that. They've also created a new super tribunal, which will be certainly not worker-friendly and which replaces current 3-person panels with labor and business representatives. So what are we proposing? I'm just going to take from the proposals that have been put forward by the Good Jobs Coalition, which I'm representing tonight, and which has the demonstration referred to earlier. I have like 5 or 6 flyers for it. It actually starts at 11:30 tomorrow up there at St. Clair and Yonge, and we welcome your attendance. So in short, the 3 key proposals being put forward by the Good Jobs Coalition are: 1, rescind or reverse all the Budget Bill C-38 measures related to employment insurance; 2, rescind the temporary foreign worker wage discrimination, that is 5 to 15% below prevailing rates, and the 10-day fast tracking that the government is introducing for employers applying for temporary foreign workers. And thirdly, improve EI benefits in these ways: increase access by reducing the qualifying hours to 360 hours, increase the duration to at least 50 weeks in all regions. It was that way not long ago. And provide an extra year of special extension when unemployment exceeds 6.5%. That's been done, for example, in the U.S. They have up to 2 years of benefits during this recession. And finally, increase benefits to at least 60% of earnings based on workers' 12 best weeks. There are more details, but those are the essential pieces. Thank you.